Hello class, today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going over the array program, and what I did for you this time was, I think I already did this for you, but we have direct one-to-one relation on the examples to the problems that I assigned. Now what I want you to realize real quick is these two are the exact same thing, but we're going to be coding them in two different ways. And the random one, I'm not going to be able to do anything. You're just going to have to figure that out. So the first step always is make the pseudocode. And what do I mean by the pseudocode is getting these values right here. These, 6 values. So we're going to get these 6 values for every single one. The starting number is literally the starting number, 10. I write down 10. The ending number is 60. How many numbers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And what's the difference? So what we're saying is, how do I get from 10 to 20? Well, I either add 10 or I multiply by 2. How do I get from 20 to 30? I can still add 10, but I can't multiply by 2. I'd have to multiply by half, so I'm actually dividing by 0.5. I don't know. Multiplying by 1.5. Now that I realize I can't, to get from 20 to 30, I can't multiply by 2 because I'd be jumping to 40. So that's not going to work. So I can instantly see that I have my pattern every time I'm adding by 10. Where does this go in the code? So our starting number is 10. Our starting number is either the static assignment of array position 0 or it's the value of sum. And the reason why it's or is because if this is my starting value and this is this, I can program this two different ways. My ending number I never use because I'm going by array position. So what I use is this 6 goes right here because I have 6 values, which means array position 0 through 5. And that gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers. This plus 10 now is how I change sum. So I would put in a code sum plus equals 10. Now that's the first way to do it. The other way you can do it is I'm not going to use the variable sum at all. So my starting number is now my first array position. My ending number I don't use. How many numbers? It goes right here. Same as before. Except now my change is going to go inside my code. So I'm going to say the current array position. So when we're looking at this, we're saying this is no longer an array. It is it is an array. But I have the value 10. And how do I get 20? I have the current array position, which is 20. That position is position number 0. Position number 0 plus 10 equals position number 1. If position number 1 is in terms of I, position number 0 is num sub I minus 1, which is the previous value in the array of nums. I take the previous value and I add 10 and I get the current value. What you have to do is you have to put the value that I want to assign on the right and where I want to assign it on the left. And this will also work. So as you can see, there's two different ways to do this. You can use sum, and you don't need to use this, where you have a static assignment. Or you can straight up just use the static assignment and then use the previous value. I personally like these answers a lot better than the other ones. Let's take a look at the next one. This one's quite tricky. The next one is 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5. First thing you want to do is do the starting number, do the ending number, and how many numbers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now here's where it gets tricky, because if I go here, I'm going to say plus 1, minus 1, plus 1, minus 1. Plus 1, minus 1. Is that a pattern? Well, yes, it is. We're adding one, and then we're subtracting one. Add, subtract. Add, subtract. We can't multiply to do this. We can't divide. So it has to be add, subtract by 1. Now here comes the fun part. How do we know when to subtract 1? Well, let's think of array positions. If I take this code and do the array positions, I have array positions 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm subtracting. I want to circle the array position where I'm subtracting, which is right here. The next one I'm subtracting is right here. And the next one I'm subtracting would be array position 9. We're just hypothetically going to see this. So now what we're thinking about is, on array positions 3, 6, and 9, we subtract. What do these numbers all have in common? Well, I can divide this one by 3, I can divide this one by 3, and I can divide this one by 3. So what I have to do in my code is, I do the mod operator. And what the mod operator does is it says, if I can divide I by 3 and I do not get a remainder, then I want to do something. And then I say, otherwise, else, if it's not divisible by 3, I want to do something else. And I can put as many lines of code in here as I want to. So I know each and every time I'm going to be using the previous value. I'm not going to be adding 10, but I'm going to still be using the previous value. That's the easier way to do it. So we have here where we need the array position to have 9 values, because that's how many numbers, and the ending number doesn't matter because I have the array positions. Now, first things first, we need to know what the starting value is. The starting value for array position 0 is 1. That means the next one that I want to change is array position 1. Because I changed array position 0, the next value is 1. I want to end when nums.length I is greater than nums.length. So I say I is less than nums.length, repeat. So if it's divisible by 3, which is this array position, I want to subtract the previous value by 1. If it's not divisible by 3, which means all of these spots, I color-coded it there for you, I want to add 1. And then I want to print out nums of I every time. Now, the bad thing about this is, if I do this, this will not work. Because I'm never going to print out the first value. So the only value that are going to be printed out is this right here. But I want to print out that first value. I could cheat and put this line of code up here and say, well, print out nums of 0. So what we're doing here is, after we created the code, we want to be using this advanced for loop to output instead of this line of code. So we're going to comment out the print line where it's printing out nums of I, and we're going to be using the advanced for loop where we're saying for every value of nums, assign it to my value and then print out my value. And this will go through all the array positions, all 9 of them, 0 through 8, because 0 counts as 1. So by doing it this way, we know that no matter what we start at, we're still going to be printing out all the values because we're going through every value in this advanced for loop. The next one we have is, we're starting at 10, we're ending at 5, and we're subtracting by 1 every time. So when we subtract by 1 every time, we're going to hit this issue where we have this. So we have a 5, 5, where it does not follow the pattern. However, we still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbers. So in this, what we have to do is, we realize this number here does not follow the pattern, but everything else does. So what we have to do is, we say, okay, if we set it statically using this num_sub 0 equals 4, we need to get the array position, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Even though it's length 7, we have to start at 0. And we want to assign the value to be 5. When we're going in our loop, instead of nums.length, we have nums.length -1, and this -1 comes from us statically assigning the last array position. So what we have here is we're starting at 0, and then the nice thing about this is nums actually equals 10 minus I, which is just a coincidence here, because the first thing is we're subtracting 0, subtract 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we don't do this one because we statically do it. So again, we're not using this print line. What we have to do is use that advanced for loop code, which we just copy and paste in. You should always have this in your code, and I actually expect you to be outputting with this code to do this. So what we're doing here is when we run this code, start at 0, 10 minus 0, we get 10, 10 minus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then this is statically assigned by this. So this takes care of the value that's not in the pattern. So we have this made, and the interesting thing that I want you to see here is I didn't change my starting value, but I changed my ending number because I statically assigned the last value. And that's just one different way you can code this stuff. So let's take a look at another one. We have this setup. Now these are a little bit trickier because we are doing different things. So of course you still want to start with a pseudocode, and the pseudocode helps you figure things out. My starting number is 100, my ending number is 16. Even though we don't use this, we need to write this down because it helps us figure out things. How many numbers? 2, 4, 6. How do I get from 100 to 50? I subtract 50, I divide by 2, and I can't multiply. I could multiply by 1/2, but that's basically just dividing, so we don't want to write that down. The next one is, how do I get from 50 to 33? Well, I can subtract 17. I know it's subtraction, so I don't have to write the minus sign. And I divide by, I don't know what, somewhere between 1 and 2, so that doesn't work. So I've already hit an impasse where there's no pattern. And so the next one is we want to relate the starting number and the ending number to every number. So how do I get from 100 to 33? Because I already got 100 to 50. 100 to 33 would be dividing by 3. So I just write 3. I don't have to write the divide because I know it's divided because we're having it this here and different colors separated. So the next one is, how do I get from 100 to 25? I divide by 4. Divide by 5. Divide by 6. And of course 100 to 100, I have to remember this step, I divide by 1. So now that I found my pattern, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I need a control variable to do this. So let's get our code and let's take a look here. How many numbers are there? 6. They go from array position 0 to 5. And I want to write that down just so I remember that, and it helps me figure this stuff out. Do I need a static value? Yes. I could use a static value or I could use a sum value, either one. I'm going to use a sum value in this one because this is usually just easier to do. So I'm going to say int sum equals 100. When sum equals 100, the first thing I want to do is I want to assign the value of sum to nums. And then I also want to divide by a variable. I want to divide by a variable which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. However, I already have a variable that goes 0 to 5. So I could divide this by I plus 1 and make sure you put parentheses, otherwise you'll have a logic error. This would work. So this is one solution. So let's clone the page and let's do a different one. So if I didn't do sum, if I didn't do this I plus 1, I would need to make a counter variable. So just int count equals 1, because the first thing we divide 100 by is 1. So I would divide this by count, and then I would increase count plus plus. Count would then go from 1 to 6, ideally what I want. There's even another way, which is the nice thing about this, is with programming there's so many solutions. Instead of using a sum variable, I can just say, well, let's just say num_sub 0, the first one is going to be 100. And then I'm going to take num sub 0, and it's always going to be num sub 0 because I'm always dividing by 100, and then I'm going to be dividing by count, or if I wanted to, the I trick. But I'm just going to redeclare count equals 1. Now, with count equaling 1 and starting at array position 0, I've already assigned array position 0, so I could do this as 0 and reassign this, or what I could do is I could say count is 2 and my starting array position is 1, so I'm starting at 50. 100 divided by 2 is 50, and then I'd set that all up. And of course, all of these needed to be nums.length. Last but not least, we have this same pseudocode that we had before up here. Here we're using the previous value. Here what I'm going to be doing is doing a way that I haven't shown you yet. So let's take a look at this. Our starting number is 1, our ending number is 5, and we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 values. We already know the pattern: plus 1, minus 1, plus 1, plus 1, minus 1. Now, we can actually create that for loop. Take the previous one. We're going to create this for loop. So we need array positions 0 through 9, which gives me 0 through 8. I'm going to start with my first value. I'm going to start with, I could do this with less, but just to simplify it, I'm going to go int nums. Ooh, this should not have been int. It should have just been nums of 0. So first thing I'm going to do is change my array to size 9. This becomes now 8 because it's 0 through 8. And what I can do is I can do this two ways. The easiest way is to have 3 static values where I assign positions 0, 1, and 2 to become 1, 2, and 3. And then inside my for loop, I'm actually going to say when this is less than length divided by 3. And this will mess me up because if we have the ending numbers, it won't always do it. But we're assuming, because it does stop in the third one, that it is divisible by 3. So we have a little precondition here where length has to be divisible by 3 in order for this to work. So then what we're going to do is we're actually going to increase I by 3 every time. So if we increase I by 3 every time, we're going to be taking care of 3 values all at once. So we're assigning nums. So our first setup, first number that we're going to do is the third array position. And to help focus, I'm going to circle it 0, 1, 2, 3. So I'm starting with 2, and I'm also doing 3, 4. So to get 2, nums of I equals, if I go back 2 array positions, nums of I equals nums of I minus 2. The next array position, which is nums of I plus 1, is nums of I minus 1, because if I add 1 and then subtract 2, I get 3. But the weird thing is, the third one is nums of I plus 2, which equals nums of I minus 1, and on the outside of the brackets plus 1, which means the previous value plus 1 is the third value. I don't need count, and I can't output this way. I still need to use the advanced for loop. There we go. This is actually interesting because we're doing 3 things at once. You could do 2 things at once, you could do 1 thing at once, you could do 500 things at once. The only issue here is if it's not divisible by 3, we're going to get an out of bounds error. So we just have to check that. Or what you do is, there's other ways to do it, which I don't want to show right now because that's not the point of the class. Because we can literally just take care of the static values. So I can say nums of length. So if this wasn't divisible by 3, let's say this was 10, where I had the next number to be, what would it be? It would be 4. What I would do is, to get this fourth value, I would say, well, let's just say when I is less than 9. Because we have 10 numbers. That last number, I just want to statically assign. And I can do the static assignment right up here. We have nums of 10, nums of 9 equals num. Oh, and we're going to put this at the bottom of it. Nums of 9 equals nums of 8 minus 1. Because again, it's that divisible by 3 rule. We're decreasing by 1. And if we really wanted to, again, we could do 10 as well. Or we could have a count variable where it says this is the count and add to the end. And do an if it's divisible by 3 sort of thing. But this is just the static case. You can set up that if statement. So basically we would be saying, if it's, now what we need to do is, when we have this to be an not divisible by 9 number, so it's 10, what we need to say is, if nums of length mod 3 equals 1, what that means is I have one remainder. That means 10 divided by 3 is 3 remainder 1. So that means I need to take the nums of length, which is 10, minus 1, and then I need to do nums of length of minus 2, and then I subtract 1. And I need to do the same exact thing for the other position, which would be when it's divisible by 3, the remainder is 2, which means I go I would need to do 2 steps, which means I do the first one and the second one, which means I take this, I keep this, but I have to increase this by 2, because remember, length is now 11, so I have to get to the 10 spot. So I decrease this by this, and then I say nums of length minus 1, which would be the last position, equals nums of length minus 2 plus 1. And that would take care of the 2 other cases where this will not work. And so this would be, to get this to work, we would say nums of length divided by 3, which would give me an integer value, and then I'm going to multiply by 3 times 3, which would then get it so that it is I'm cutting off the remainders, and this should work. That's pretty much it for all the different array tricks. Now this one is way more advanced than you ever need to do. Don't worry about that. This is just showing you other ways to do it, because I did show you the easiest way to do it with this. And again, this was still a more complex way to solve these problems, which you do not need to implement in the arrays program. But I just want to show you that there is way more than what we're just covering. We're just covering the tip of the iceberg, the easiest stuff. That's it. Have a great one, and I'll see you later.